when you became an officer, what was that experience like for you, and what did you enjoy about being a deputy?
I enjoyed every part of it. I was like I said, I started out as a state trooper. I went from there. I went to Monk's Corner PD for 6 months, waiting on a job at the Sheriff's Department to open up. And when that job opened up, I took it on January 1st, 1991, and been there, like I said, till basically present date.
And for you, when you first got into law enforcement, how did the community, what was their overall just demeanor towards law enforcement at the time, and just how they treated law enforcement compared to today?
Well, to me it was better back then than it is now, because we've had so many things that shouldn't have occurred with police involved, and some things that the public just doesn't understand because they hadn't been through what some of us police officers have. And yes, the training for police officers needs to get better. It's changed a whole lot since I went through in 1984. So.
Can you talk about, you know, a lot of people don't see what officers go through on a day-to-day basis. Can you talk about the danger of the job and some situations you've been in?
Yeah, in the past year, I was shot at by 2 different people. Only got hit by one, and that was in the head and in the back. Thank goodness. And he was involved in a call with Goose Creek on a domestic violence case, and he ended up being shot by a Goose Creek sniper after threatening several police officers and shooting at Goose Creek and shooting at me, which is a shame. I mean, it's just terrible that the world's going the way it's going. But I enjoyed helping people since the day I started. People knew me before I left here because Dad was sheriff of the county, so I pretty much knew everybody that was all the way from Schuylerville back down to Monk's Corner. So I had no problem, and I got to help people every chance I could. But to me, it's been a real learning experience, and I'd go back and do it again. I have 3 sons that want to do it, and I told them I'd help them all get started in it if I could.
And just, you know, you said your sons want to have a career in law enforcement. Does it make you nervous, especially considering just everything, just the animosity towards a lot of police officers? Not everywhere, but just, you know, just if you turn on the TV, it's always a lot of anti-police rhetoric.
Well, I sit down and talk to all 3 of them, so they kind of understand what they need to do out there and what they need to not do. I mean, which is what I wish I'd had somebody tell me when I started, but I didn't. My father was, like I said, he's a police officer from 56 to 71, and I think he got in 1 fight. I got in 2 fights the first week I was a state trooper. So times have really changed.
And for you, can you talk about that more recent shooting you were involved in, just how it changed your life and just what led up to it? What do you remember? I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone. She worked for the public defender's office, and we had a case coming up together where she was providing a suspect with an attorney as his rights require. We were going to meet at a gas station and get us something to drink and talk about the case. And we were standing out in front of the gas station when all of a sudden somebody started firing a gun at the other end of the building. And I didn't even know I'd been hit. I thought I'd fallen down and hit the concrete, because I had 2 people that I thought were trying to hold me down, but they were trying to help me up. But they told me I'd been shot, and I told them no, I'd fallen down. Didn't know I'd been shot. The officer with the public defender's office is Miss Christy Page, and how she didn't get hit, I have no clue. Because I mean, we were standing probably a foot apart talking, so she was extremely lucky that night. And so you were talking a little bit earlier, the doctor said you weren't going to make it off the operating table. What happened when, you know, obviously EMS came?
EMS came and took me, like I said, picked me up, and they took me to a helicopter. And that's what they say. They said if I rode an ambulance, I never would have got to the operating table in MUSC anyway. But the doctor that did my surgery was pretty much the only doctor in this area that could have done it. And he was not on call, he was off. And he was spending time at the hospital. Apparently he loved his job as much as I loved mine. So he did the surgery on me, and he told me that he actually didn't think I would get off the table alive, and he was doing everything he could, and it was going to be put in God's hands, and he was going downstairs and talk to my parents. So that was the last thing I basically remember before I went to surgery. And now I have a scar all the way across my head. I have to wear a pair of glasses that cost $1,000 for workman's comp to make. But without them, I can't see either side, right or left. My peripheral vision's gone. So, and my license expired while I was in the hospital. So if I'm ever going to drive again, I got to go take the test, which is not bad. I probably needed to do that anyway. But I've really enjoyed my career in law enforcement. I've gotten to help thousands of people, honestly. I mean, anywhere from changing tires to help them with get their maybe sons, daughters, whatever, that had warrants on them. I'd call them and they'd come in. I'd get them booked into jail and get them released on a PR bond if it wasn't a violent crime. So I got to help as many people as I could, and that's why I really liked the job. I mean, I was a lieutenant, which at that time was the senior officer on the road, so, and I worked night shift, so till somebody came out that morning that outranked me, I was in charge of this county, which I liked a lot.
There's been some critics who say officers are expected to do too much with too little. Do you agree with that? You know, there's just so much responsibility that an officer has nowadays. Can you give some insight on, you know, a lot of people are not aware all that officers do and some of the scenes or situations they respond to?
It's amazing. When I moved from Rock Hill on the highway patrol down to Monk's Corner area to work for Monk's Corner Police Department, I was getting a very peaceful divorce, and I was going to be near my daughter, and that worked out perfect. I couldn't have asked for it better. We didn't argue, and me and her mom still talk today. So, but yeah, there needs to be a big change. Police need some better training. I'm not going to take anything away from the academy or anybody's training. People like at the sheriff's department, we have excellent training, but you know, just because you do it at the office or at the training center, you still got to do it when it comes down to it. When somebody's shooting at you, and at the training center, you don't have anybody shooting at you, so it's extremely hard to tell somebody, you know, you dodging real bullets. Like that night I got shot, and like I said, a few weeks earlier, I backed Goose Creek up on another call, and was getting shot at, and I'd fired, I think, 5 shots at the subject that was shooting at me, and the only thing I came close to hitting, I think, was 2 of my own officers that I couldn't even see because it was dark. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And until they came down there and told me that I'd shot near them, I didn't know I'd shot near them. I mean, they were probably 1,000 yards away. But it's dangerous, especially at nighttime. It's extremely dangerous because you don't know who's around the next corner, whether they like you, whether they don't. What anybody's prior record is, till you get a reason to run their prior history and find out if they're a good guy or whether they've been violating the law their whole life.
And you said, you know, officers need more training. Can you talk a little bit about what specific training they need? Because you know, officers, as you know, are trained a certain way when to use deadly force and when to not. Like, do you think that's the kind of training, or because some officers?
All right, when I went through it, was a different type of training, and I'm sure it's not being the same because I've talked to people that came through. We'd go through houses and learn how to clear a house in the dark, and learn how to clear it in daytime with a mirror, making sure there was nobody around the corner. Sometimes it was make-believe, but you got killed, and then they explained to you what you did wrong. But and to me, it was just better training back then. The young officers that work for me now, or worked for me when I was sheriff's department, they don't seem to be getting the same training we got in 1984, and that's terrible because, I mean, that's how many years ago? A while. Your training should get better. You got more money, training should get better. But the officers also have to follow it once they get the training, which has been a problem too. Some officers have had better training and didn't use it. And they understand that there's a consequence if you make a wrong decision out there. I mean, it's about like being in charge of a county. I mean, I got 12 men that work for me. If one of them mess up, it all comes back on me. And that's why the night I got shot, my dispatch didn't even know who got shot. Somebody had to come on my radio in a patrol car and tell them it was me, which was different.
And it's just like playing devil's advocate, you know, there does seem to be this anti-sentiment towards police, more so than positive, but it's like a lot of pro-law enforcement people say, you know, there are bad apples in every profession. You know.
Yeah, you're right. There's some people out there that can't be trained. You're not going to turn them around. They got a belief and that's what they stick to. But the thing is, you got to follow your training, and you got to follow what you know for a fact is right. I mean, common sense tells you a lot of things. You know, if you police basically on common sense, you can pretty much do your job and not get in trouble.
And a lot of, especially around the country, you know, a lot of critics say police officers are too trigger happy. You know, we're all trained when to use deadly force, when not to use deadly force. And some argue a lot of those shootings that have happened have been justified. Like, where do you stand in all that as an officer?
It would be a case scenario as whether it was justified. I'd have to see which case we were talking about, but there were some, yes, that were justified shootings, but trying to convince the public they're justified, because the public's never been in law enforcement. They don't know what we do for a living. I mean, I've come home from work with broken ribs, bloody everywhere, uniform just completely ruined, and the public doesn't see that part of it. All they see is us ride around, stop at the convenience store, get a drink. That's it. That's all they know, which is not the way to be judged. I mean, you can't train some, I mean, you can't make some people change the way they believe. A few people trying to turn a crowd, they can do it very easy. Just like the presidential election right now is being based a lot on these shootings. A lot of them are using them to try and get votes, try and get the electoral college votes. But I think that's not the proper way to use it. I don't think you should be elected our president because you want to use something bad that's happening in the United States. I mean, let's talk about making it better, not worse. If you're gonna bring it up, make it better.
And when you turn on the news and you see just the protests against police and whatnot, for you, how does that make you feel?
I don't think the protest itself does much good. I think it does worse than good. Now, everybody's got the right to protest. I mean, the Constitution gives people the right to do that as long as you do it properly. But that's where it's been getting out of hand. I mean, it starts out peaceful, and within the first 2 or 3 hours of it, it changes around because you got a second group comes up just trying to tell the first group they're wrong. So now you got two groups fighting each other.
Yeah, and as you said, you know, they have the right to protest. Do you feel a lot of these protests are justified, or these people who are in the protests are misinformed about the actual facts?
I think some of the people involved in these protests don't honestly know everything they're protesting. I mean, they know the short general part of it, but if they went over and looked at all the facts of the case and checked everybody that was involved in it, they'd see that, you know, everybody's got the right to say what they want. There's no sense in arguing with somebody if it starts out peaceful. Why do you want to make it deadly? I mean, over an opinion. That'd be like the president shooting the vice president over an opinion. This thing will happen.
And there seems to have been a rise in police officer shootings. We got the one in Baton Rouge, Dallas. There was one in San Diego. I mean, all within a matter, it seems like 2 weeks. For you, like, just how does that make you feel when you see that? And what do you think is ultimately going to happen if this continues?
It's going to get harder and harder to find anybody to take the job as a police officer. Like I said, I've been doing it now for some odd 32 years. And I'd come back now if I could, but due to my injuries from getting shot, that's not feasible. It's not going to happen. But I miss it every day. And my officers that work for me stopped by here, and the sheriff told me I can ride with him anytime I want to. But they don't need to worry about me. They need to worry about themselves. So I appreciate the thought that, you know, I can go out there and help them, but I don't know for a fact that they'd want to put me out there to back somebody up with a gun when I've been shot in the head, even though I don't see anything changed on me. You know, you never know what some test or something will show.
Yeah. What do you think it's going to take to, or what would you like to see happen along with other training, and to just kind of make it, because it seems like there's such a divide in this country, police on one side and then those who are anti-police on the other side. Like, what do you think it's going to take to resolve this, or do you see it just getting worse and more police shootings happening, and then to the point where there's martial law and nobody wants to be in law enforcement?
I hope it doesn't go that way, but right now that's the way it's looking. But I'm hoping for the opposite. I'm hoping that it's going to change and people are going to start trying to get along. I mean, it's like this subdivision here is called Haynesville. It's built by Oscar Haynes, a black man that built this house in 1963. We were the first house in the subdivision, and when I grew up playing with some white, some black. So I mean, and we never had a problem. I mean, we were kids, yeah, but apparently we were smarter than some of the adults. But I hope one day that everybody just learns to get along. I mean, white, black, Hispanic. I don't want another civil war. I'm getting too old to fight. So I mean, I hope it gets better. When I was in the Marine Corps, we had dark green Marines, we had light green Marines, but everybody was green. So I mean, we all got along that way. There wasn't a white, black thing. You didn't even say white, black in the Marine Corps when I was there.
What do you think it's going to take to get more people? Because a lot of departments, police departments, are dealing with a shortage and lack of people willing to apply. Like, what do you think it's going to take to change that?
Well, it would be nice to see a department like I was affiliated with it being able to show the public some of the calls we go on. But to do that, you got to put their life in jeopardy. And the officer that rides them around has to worry about them. So, I mean, that makes it a little difficult to do it that way. But I think we could honestly do it at our training center and bring a lot of the, they brought some of the elderly up there to explain something to them, but I'm talking about people my age. I'm not quite elderly yet. I'm getting close, but if you could bring in the public my age, white, black, Hispanic, and explain to them, you know, this is what we do. This is where we start at the academy. And I mean, that's what they need to see. They need to see what I do day to day, or what I used to do day to day. I can't count how many times I helped the rescue squad, the highway patrol, went through swamps looking for missing kids, looking for missing people. And I enjoyed that. I mean, I really did. I mean, it's a shame that a child or an elderly adult had to go in the swamp and get lost. But I enjoyed finding them, because a dog doesn't track very well through the swamp. Mm-hmm. But with the dog, and the dog couldn't give him a ride back out once we got him, I had to do that. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, I still, to this minute, still I do. Yeah.
Do you, when you turn on the news, do you feel like, especially you've been in it so long and you see just a lot of things in your time being in law enforcement, do you feel like there's a war on law enforcement right now? And if so, why or why not?
Right now, I do feel like people, like I said, really they don't understand from the day we go to the academy till we graduate from the academy, till we go out down the road, and basically till we're falling toward the end of our career. They don't understand everything we do, and the only way to do it is send them to the academy. And you can't do that to everybody. I mean, there's just no way. But yeah, I wish there was a way we could stop what's starting right now, because all I see right now is, like I said, is a small civil war. And I hate that, because like I said, I got so many friends out here, white, black, and Hispanic. I don't want to see any of them get hurt. I don't want a police officer shoot them by mistake, or, you know, not knowing who they're shooting at. And it's happened many times.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you think is worth mentioning about just your concerns or frustrations, or anything else that you think people will want to know?
Well, I think that the politicians need to stop using bad situations to help them get votes. To me, that's totally wrong. I mean, and then they don't do anything to fix them. They just bring them up there and talk to them, and I guess everything's better now. We talk to you, so you can go home now. Mm-hmm. The people from the church in Charleston, which was extremely wrong. I mean, there was no reason for that shooting. I don't know the whole circumstances of what caused it, but there was no reason for it. You don't invite somebody in your church or in the room that joins up to the church and expect somebody to shoot you.
Yeah, well, the guy came down from Colombia and said he wanted to start a civil war. That's what he, but he failed in that attempt.
Hopefully so. Because, like I said, I got just as many black friends as I got white, if not more.